Wes from New Frame here. Do you have pain sensors in your body? Do you know how pain really works? Today, we're going to go over a few of these questions and the idea of nociception and how that can eventually lead to you feeling pain. Nociception is the process of sending neural signals up to your brain that tells your brain there's something you need to protect against. Or, in other words, nociception is the process of how your body tells your brain that something dangerous is afoot. Well, how do we detect this danger? No worries. We have special sensors throughout our body called nociceptors, and they like to help us out with this. Nociceptors are primarily located in our skin, and we can think of them as our danger sensors. When there's something that is dangerous afoot, nociceptors help detect that danger and then create and start sending those danger signals up to the brain. This process is what we like to call nociception. For example, if you were to get stung by a bee, your nociceptors would then get kicked off and set off and start sending these signals, what we call nociception, up to the brain, which more times than not would create some pain. So why are we even using this big word of nociception? Why don't we just call them pain signals? Well, the main reason that we do this is because nociception doesn't always lead to pain. Oftentimes, it doesn't. Let's take another example here. Sitting for hours on a hard chair is something we as humans have gotten pretty good at doing. Yet when you sit for that prolonged period of time, your nociceptors will start sending those danger signals up to the brain. But since your body and brain know that sitting in a chair is not a very dangerous activity, they'll actually be blocked by the brain and not acted on. So therefore, no pain. Now, that's not saying that you'll never have pain while sitting down. Certainly we do. But those signals are being sent up the whole time. So that's the idea behind it. And the other reason we use nociception or danger signals instead of pain signals is that you can't physically feel pain if those signals don't first get analyzed by our brain. This is why we use the old adage, no brain, no pain. So in a nutshell, this is why these signals are more appropriately called danger signals instead of pain signals. And to highlight this point further, let's go back to the bee sting example. If you were walking along in the woods, enjoying the sunshine and a cool breeze, and then out of nowhere just happening to get stuck by a bee, those danger receptors, nociceptors, would most certainly get activated and start sending those danger signals up to the brain, which is what we would call nociception, which almost certainly would, cause some pain, and that's very normal. Now let's take the same example and change one little detail. That same bee lands on you. It stings you. But this time, you're not enjoying a leisurely stroll. You're instead in a wartime battle running away from your enemy. Let me ask you this. Does this still hurt? Well, I'd argue that it probably doesn't. And that's because, you're not worried about some little bees stinging you. You're more worried about running away from that enemy. So we have the same nociceptors, the same nociception, the same thing that's causing this nociception, yet a different result. Pain versus no pain. This is precisely why we don't and shouldn't call nociceptors pain receptors or nociception pain signals. And do you want to hear a fun fact? There have been several stories of soldiers coming back from war, going about their normal lives for years on end, and then discovering for the first time they have a bullet lodged in them from a routine medical visit. It's kind of crazy, but it's true. And now that we understand that nociception and nociceptors are all about danger and not pain, let's take a closer look at the different types of nociception we have in our bodies. Nociception is most often described like our previous example of a bee sting. Something physically activates a nociceptor, causing danger signals to be sent up to the brain. But did you know that thoughts and emotions can also take the form of nociception too? That's right, negative thoughts and negative emotions can actually lead to our brains thinking we're in physical danger, causing us to produce pain. This is one of the reasons why depression and chronic pain often go hand in hand. Depression can be a form of nociception, which can worsen our pain. This has even gotten to the point where the medical community is unsure which causes which, depression or chronic pain. To further highlight this, let me go over the famous rubber hand experiment. Now you're going to get a kick out of this. In this experiment, the subject places both their hands and forearms on the table. The researcher then places a cardboard divider next to the left hand on the table so the subject cannot see their left hand. So it would go along right here. The researcher then places a rubber hand to the right of the divider, so now that it appears to the subject that their new rubber hand is their actual hand. The researcher then goes through a few additional steps, like lightly stroking the subject's real hand and rubber hand with a feather. And what's crazy about doing all of this is that after a few minutes, the subjects begin to feel that feather through the rubber hand, even when the real hand is not even being touched. Well, the next thing that happens is the fun part. The researcher then, instead of a feather, pulls out a mallet and strikes the subject's rubber hand with a mallet. And the hilarity ensues afterwards, where the subject freaks out, screams, winces, tries to pull their rubber hand back. And then when asked later, they report that they felt physical pain through their rubber hand. But how? Well, there is a lot of science that goes behind this, but to put it briefly, the subject seeing the feather touch the rubber hand while another feather touches the actual hand causes the subcortical parts of our brain to start thinking that our new hand is actually the rubber hand. Now, of course, we know it's not their actual hand, and if you were to ask the subjects, they wouldn't start to think, that rubber hand is my actual hand. But the way we're programmed as humans, our primitive brain naturally kicks in before our thinking brain can interfere and say, wait, that's not actually your hand. Which this whole experiment highlights just another way danger messages can be created even without a physical stimulus. And if you'd like to watch the video of the experiment, I'll put the link in the description. Another example of thoughts and emotions being nociception could be explained with placebos. Often talked about in medicine, placebos are interventions that help even though they're not supposed to. This would be like using a sugar pill to help someone with a physical ailment like, congestive heart failure or pain after surgery or really any type of medical condition. And I'd love to explain this more since there's a lot of cool science and ethical questions behind placebos, but that'll have to wait until another video. Instead, what I want to focus on is the other side of the placebo, and there's actually something called a nocebo. This, again, is often used in medicine and is when something that should have no effect, like a sugar pill, ends up having a negative effect, like making a person's condition worse or making somebody just feel worse. What we know about both placebos and nocebos is that they're directly impacted by our beliefs. If we believe a pill or a procedure or a technique will help us or our condition, most times than not, it actually will. However, the opposite is true as well. If we believe that something will hurt, not be effective or harmful, then it likely will. And the nocebo is yet another example of beliefs or thoughts acting as a form of nociception, which can impact our pain. Well, what can we do to improve this? I know all this information may seem fine and dandy, but what do we do about it? How do we fight against nociception? Well, one of the best things to do is simply learning how all this stuff works. Many people with chronic pain, now that they have pain, they don't know how it works. They just know that they, have pain. What we found is that learning about the underpinnings and learning how all the little intricate details works it can help lower the veil of truth behind pain and makes it a whole lot less scary. The thing about pain is a lot of times we feel it. We don't know why we feel it. We just have a lot of fear behind it. And by decreasing that fear, by improving our knowledge about how pain works, we often will set the stage for us to start feeling just a little bit better. Also, by learning about how all this stuff works, you can discover what you need to start working on to improve your pain in particular. There are so many things you can do, and the trouble is everyone is different. So the interventions or combination of interventions you need could be vastly different than the next person, even if you have the same diagnosis. Finding out which techniques that can help you is a tough process, and it takes a little trial and error. This is where NewFrame helps you out. We've created the program that offers the most effective techniques that you can start to do at home, all at your own pace. And if you'd like to learn more, please feel free to visit our website at www.newframeyourpain.com to learn a little bit more. And as always, if you have any questions, please let us know. But that's all for now. Until next time, take care.